I'm standing in a courthouse parking lot, watching strangers bid on my house. 15,000 going once. The auctioneer's voice echoes off the concrete. How did I get here? My HOA president, Karen Whitmore, decided the windows she personally approved were suddenly illegal. She thought she could destroy my life over home improvements I had written permission for. But Karen made one fatal mistake. She didn't know I'd document everything, every lie, every threat, every violation notice from those miserable community center meetings. Fast forward 5 years. I'm holding a $75,000 check. Guess whose signature is on it? That's right, Karen Whitmore herself. She had no idea what she'd started when she messed with the wrong electrician. My name is Marcus Ricks. I'm 52, a union electrician, and after my divorce, I needed somewhere safe for my 16-year-old daughter Emma's weekend visits. She was already dealing with enough chaos. I wanted stability. Willowbrook Estates looked perfect. Quiet streets, kids on bikes, the smell of barbecue drifting from backyards on summer evenings. The house needed work, but that's my specialty. Those original 1973 single-pane, aluminum windows were bleeding money every winter. I researched replacements for months. Double-pane vinyl, energy-efficient, historically appropriate style. I submitted my architectural request like a good homeowner. Photos, specifications, contractor credentials, the whole package. The HOA had 30 days to respond. On day 28, I got the approval letter. Request approved for installation. Clear as daylight. Signed by the architectural committee. Professional installation, city permits, inspector approval. Everything by the book. The windows looked fantastic and cut my heating bill in half. For exactly 14 days, I thought I'd won the homeowner lottery. Then Karen Whitmore decided to destroy my life. She was our HOA president and ran Willowbrook like her personal dictatorship. Real estate agent by trade, control freak by nature. Blonde bob like a helmet, leather portfolio like a shield, smile that could freeze hell. I was flipping burgers for Emma when my phone exploded. Mr. Ricks, your unauthorized modifications are unacceptable. I told her I had written approval. She said it was conditional pending final board review. I stared at my letter. No conditions anywhere. Tuesday night, I walked into that community center with my approval letter and righteous confidence. The place smelled like industrial coffee and crushed dreams. Karen sat behind a folding table like she was presiding over war crimes trials. Your window installation violates community standards, she announced, sliding a violation notice toward me like a death sentence. I held up my approval. You already said yes. Approval doesn't guarantee compliance. Her pen scratched across another form with the sound of bureaucratic revenge. $500 fine. 30 days to pay. $500 for following their rules. I looked around at my neighbors. Every face turned away. The silence was deafening. That's when it hit me. Karen wasn't enforcing rules. She was making examples. The violation notice came with a threat buried in legal language. Fines double monthly until compliance. I dug through my HOA paperwork that night, tracing the financial nightmare she'd unleashed. Month 1, $500. Month 2, $1,000. Month 3, $2,000. My post-divorce budget couldn't survive that math. Lawyers wanted $5,000 up front just to read the case. I was looking at financial suicide either way. Pay Karen's escalating ransom or pay attorneys to fight her. But here's what Karen didn't know about electricians. We troubleshoot for a living. When a circuit shorts, we trace every wire until we find the problem. And I was about to discover that Karen Whitmore had been shorting this entire neighborhood. While researching my options, I drove around Willowbrook, counting identical window replacements. 47 houses with the exact same vinyl windows I'd installed. 47 neighbors who'd never received violation notices. Karen wasn't enforcing community standards. She was running a protection racket, and I'd just become her newest target. 2 weeks after I embarrassed her at that community meeting, I found a certified letter in my mailbox. Property lien notice for $2,000. My hands actually shook reading the breakdown. The original $500 fine had mutated into a financial monster. Late fees, administrative costs, enforcement expenses. Failure to satisfy the lien may result in foreclosure proceedings. Foreclosure over windows she'd personally approved. I called my 73-year-old neighbor Janet Bennett, who kept the most beautiful garden in Willowbrook. Her voice trembled. "Oh, Marcus, I was hoping you'd call. Karen stopped by yesterday, asking questions about your situation, whether you seem financially stable, whether Emma visits regularly, whether you maintain your property. She's building a case against you." Then came the revelation that changed everything. She did the same thing to me last year. Said my garden gnomes violated aesthetic standards. I'm 73 years old. Marcus. I move the gnomes rather than fight. That night, I spent hours researching Ohio property law. HOA liens require proper legal notice with a 30-day cure period. Karen had skipped straight to the lien filing. Her entire threat was built on quicksand. The next morning, I drove to the county recorder's office basement. Buried in those files, I found her fatal error. Her lien was missing 3 required legal documents. She'd cut corners because she assumed a blue-collar electrician wouldn't understand property law. Wrong assumption. I photocopied everything, filed my formal challenge, and walked out with my first legal victory buzzing through my veins like good voltage. But Karen was nowhere near finished. She called an emergency board meeting to clarify window policies. "The board has determined that previous approvals were issued in error," she announced. "All non-conforming windows must be replaced within 60 days. I stood up. "You can't retroactively change approvals, Karen. That's breach of contract." She banged the gavel. "Mr. Hicks, you're out of order. No, you're out of line. Your lien is invalid. You never provided proper legal notice under state law." Her face cycled through white, then red, then purple. The meeting adjourned, but the damage was done. I'd humiliated her in front of the remaining board members, and Karen Whitmore collected grudges like some people collect stamps. The retaliation came fast. A collections agency started calling. "Mr. Hicks, you owe $2,400. We can garnish wages and seize bank accounts. That lien is invalid." I filed a legal challenge. "Our client says otherwise." Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Emma noticed during her weekend visit. "Dad, you look exhausted. What's wrong?" I pulled her into a hug. "Just some boring adult stuff, sweetheart." That's when I started my documentation obsession. I converted the spare bedroom into a command center. Timeline covering one wall, copies of every document, photos of windows throughout the neighborhood. The breakthrough came when I mapped her enforcement patterns. 47 houses with identical windows. But the violations followed a disturbing pattern. Every targeted homeowner was either a renter, minority, or working class like me. Karen's country club friends got friendly reminders for identical violations. I was staring at systematic discrimination disguised as community standards. Then Karen dropped her nuclear option. An expensive HOA attorney from Columbus sent a letter, notice of intent to foreclose. "Your client has 30 days to satisfy all outstanding obligations or face sheriff's sale." That weekend, I grabbed my measuring tape and camera. House by house, window by window, I photographed every vinyl replacement in Willowbrook Estates. 47 houses identical to mine. Mrs. Patterson on Elm Street, married to the bank president, had the exact same brand, same style, installed the same month as mine. Not only did she avoid violations, the HOA meeting minutes praised her community-minded improvements. 3 blocks away, Carlos Martinez got hammered with fines for identical windows. His crime, being a mechanic who rented instead of owned. Back home, my spare bedroom transformed into something between a detective's evidence room and an electrician's troubleshooting station. Photos covered every wall, connected with colored string to a neighborhood map. Blue pins for Karen's friends who got warnings. Red pins for people like me who got fines. Tuesday evening, Janet Bennett called in a whisper. "Marcus, I found something you need to see. Can you come over quietly?" Her kitchen smelled like jasmine tea and decades of careful silence. She handed me a manila folder with trembling fingers. I saved everything from my garden gnome fight last year. I thought maybe someday, someone braver than me might need this. Inside that folder was dynamite disguised as paperwork. Email exchanges between Karen and board members. One email stopped my breathing. "We need to be strategic about enforcement. Target renters and blue-collar types first. They're less likely to have legal resources to fight back. That night, I researched fair housing law until my eyes burned. Selective HOA enforcement based on race or economic status violates federal law. Not just HOA rules, but actual crimes with real penalties. Karen wasn't just a neighborhood tyrant. She was running an illegal discrimination scheme. The next morning, I called Ohio Legal Aid. The intake specialist's voice perked up when I described my evidence collection. Sir, if you can document systematic patterns, this becomes a federal fair housing case. How much documentation do you have? 3 boxes full with photos and timelines going back 5 years. Hold everything. Don't talk to anyone. We're assigning an attorney immediately. Sarah Martinez met me 2 days later. She spread my photos across the table like a winning poker hand. Marcus, this is textbook housing discrimination, selective enforcement, economic profiling, racial targeting. Karen violated about 6 federal laws. She leaned forward. She made one fatal mistake picking an electrician to bully. What's that? Electricians know how to trace problems to their source. Most people see individual violations. You've documented the entire corrupt system. But Karen wasn't surrendering. Her attorney filed for expedited foreclosure, claiming I posed imminent community risk. The emergency hearing was 4 days away. Emma found me Thursday night, surrounded by legal briefs and cold coffee. Dad, you look terrified. Is someone really trying to steal our house? I pulled her close. Remember when that kid Tyler kept stealing your lunch money until you finally told the principal? Yeah, and he got suspended. Sometimes bullies don't stop until someone forces them to stop. Karen's been stealing people's lunch money for years through these fake violations. Tomorrow I'm telling the principal. Emma squeezed my hand. Good. Tyler needed that lesson too. Friday morning, I walked into that courthouse carrying 3 boxes of evidence. Karen sat ramrod straight beside her attorney, radiating the confidence of someone who'd never lost a legal fight to a blue-collar worker. She was about to learn that confidence and competence aren't the same thing. Her attorney began, Mr. Hicks has willfully violated community covenants for 18 months. The HOA has shown remarkable patience. Sarah Martinez stood slowly. Your Honor, we're filing a federal fair housing counterclaim. The evidence shows systematic discrimination targeting minority and working-class residents. She opened my first evidence box. We have documented proof of selective enforcement spanning 5 years. She read Karen's email aloud. Target renters and blue-collar types first. They're less likely to have legal resources. The courtroom went dead silent. Judge Morrison leaned forward. This court is deeply troubled by allegations of discriminatory enforcement. Mr. Hicks, your foreclosure case is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I'm ordering a complete investigation of HOA practices and referring this matter to the federal prosecutor's office. Walking out of that courthouse felt like the first sunny day after a year-long storm. But Karen wasn't finished. Desperate people do desperate things. Anonymous complaints flooded the city about my unlicensed electrical work. Code enforcement showed up 3 times in 2 weeks, finding nothing. Someone reported my truck for commercial vehicle violations in a residential zone. Parking tickets appeared like magic. Then came the phone calls, heavy breathing, hang-ups, threats mumbled in disguised voices. Drop the lawsuit or you'll regret it. The breaking point came when Emma called me crying from school. Someone had contacted her guidance counselor with concerns about her home environment and possible neglect due to father's legal troubles. That night, I sat in my evidence room, staring at 5 years' worth of Karen's documented abuse. Buried in those records, I found something that changed everything. Property tax records showed Karen owned 3 rental houses in Willowbrook through an LLC called KW Holdings. Houses she'd never disclosed to the HOA board despite clear conflict of interest requirements. One of those rental properties had the exact same windows I'd been fined for. Identical. Same manufacturer, same style, installed by the same contractor. Karen hadn't just been discriminating against working-class residents. She'd been manipulating property values to benefit her real estate investment portfolio. Selective enforcement drove down property values, creating buying opportunities for her LLC. She'd been systematically gaming the housing market using HOA authority as her weapon. I called Sarah at home. I found it. The smoking gun that connects everything. Karen owns rental property in the neighborhood. Property with the exact windows she's been finding other people for. Sarah's silence stretched for a long moment. Marcus, you just turned this from a discrimination case into a federal RICO investigation. Karen's been running a criminal enterprise. 3 weeks later, the pieces clicked into place. I've been digging through 5 years of county property records, cross-referencing HOA board decisions with real estate transactions. KW Holdings LLC, registered in Delaware, had purchased 3 properties in Willowbrook over the past 4 years. The registered agent was Kevin Whitmore, Karen's husband. Every single property had been bought within 6 months of receiving major HOA violations. The Martinez house, Carlos got hammered with window fines, deck violations, landscaping citations. The stress drove his family to sell below market value. KW Holdings swooped in with a cash offer 20% under asking price. Same pattern with the Thompson rental, the Bennett property, and more. The smoking gun was sitting right there in the property files. One house purchased by KW Holdings 18 months ago for $43,000 below market value. According to the listing photos, it had the exact same vinyl windows I'd been fined for. The violation records told the story. The previous owners, an elderly couple named the Patels, received their first window citation 3 years ago. Fines escalated monthly until they faced foreclosure. Rather than lose everything, they sold to the first cash buyer, KW Holdings. Karen's signature was on every violation notice, every fine escalation, every board decision that drove the Patels into financial panic. Then I found the insurance records that made my blood boil. KW Holdings filed a homeowner's insurance claim for storm damage to those same windows 6 months after purchase. They collected $8,000 for replacing windows that supposedly violated HOA standards. Karen had been running a protection racket disguised as community standards enforcement. Over 4 years, KW Holdings acquired properties worth $400,000 at 60 cents on the dollar, a profit of $160,000 through systematic HOA harassment. Every targeted homeowner fit the same profile: elderly, minority, working class, or rental properties. People without resources to fight extended legal battles. Sarah called an emergency meeting. Her law office conference room smelled like fresh coffee and impending justice. What you've uncovered isn't just HOA abuse. It's organized crime. Within hours, she'd assembled a legal SWAT team, a forensic accountant, a federal housing discrimination expert, and an assistant U.S. attorney who prosecuted public corruption cases. They mapped every connection. Federal RICO charges require proving a pattern of criminal activity. We had 5 years of systematic property manipulation. The evidence organization took over my entire garage, 3 long tables covered with timelines, property records, financial transactions, victim testimonies. Emma helped after school, her teenage attention to detail perfect for cross-referencing dates and dollar amounts. Dad, Karen's like a really evil landlord who creates her own distressed properties. That's exactly what she is, sweetheart. 3 months of investigation revealed the truth. Karen Whitmore wasn't just a neighborhood bully. She was the head of a criminal organization masquerading as an HOA. The morning after news broke about the federal investigation, I found a private investigator parked outside my house, taking photos of Emma getting on the school bus. I walked to his car window. "You want to explain why you're photographing my 16-year-old daughter?" He smirked. "Just doing a job, pal. Public street, public photography." He drove off, but I didn't need confirmation. Karen was digging for dirt that didn't exist. By noon, the harassment campaign was in full swing. The PI visited 3 neighbors asking about my fitness as a parent. Janet Bennett called immediately. "Marcus, some awful man was asking if you drink too much, if you have strange visitors, if Emma looks properly fed and clothed." I told him to get off my property before I called police. The community Karen had spent years dividing was uniting against her. Mrs. Patterson called that evening. That investigator tried to pump me for information about your character. I told him you're the best neighbor we've ever had. Wednesday morning, a social worker from Child Protective Services stood on my doorstep. We received an anonymous report about possible neglect. I invited her in for coffee and showed her my evidence room. Her eyes widened. Sir, whoever reported this was either misinformed or malicious. Your home shows clear evidence of a devoted parent fighting for his family's rights. Case dismissed. And between you and me, keep fighting the good fight. Thursday brought financial warfare. Someone reported my electrical business to the state licensing board for operating without proper credentials. The inspector spent an hour reviewing my paperwork. Marcus, your paperwork's cleaner than most contractors I inspect. Someone's playing games with you. I'm noting this as a frivolous complaint filed with malicious intent. Friday, Karen tried to have my work truck towed from my own driveway. The towing company called me first. Sir, we've got a woman here demanding we tow your vehicle, but you're parked legally on your own property. She seems pretty agitated. You want us to call police? 20 minutes later, Officer Rodriguez was writing Karen a citation for filing false reports and harassment. Watching her try to explain herself to a uniformed officer while neighbors gathered on their porches was the most entertainment Willowbrook had seen in years. Tuesday morning started normal and ended with police sirens. Officer Rodriguez knocked on my door. Karen Whitmore filed a restraining order petition claiming you've been stalking and threatening her. At the courthouse, Karen sat beside her fourth attorney since this started, dressed like a trembling victim. Her attorney claimed I'd been photographing her property, following her to work, making threatening calls. Sarah handed the judge a thumb drive. Everything is time-stamped and verified. During the alleged stalking incidents, Mr. Cricks was either at work sites 20 miles away or at home with his daughter. Judge Patterson reviewed the evidence for 15 minutes. Miss Whitmore, filing false police reports is a crime. Your petition is denied, and I'm recommending the prosecutor's office review your complaint for possible perjury charges. That same evening, Emma called me at work. Dad, someone broke into our house. Nothing stolen, but all your evidence boxes are torn apart. Papers everywhere. I broke every speed limit getting home. The evidence room looked like a tornado had hit it, but they'd missed the backup drives hidden in my bedroom closet and the duplicate files at Sarah's office. Officer Rodriguez arrived within minutes. This wasn't random vandalism. Someone was looking for specific documents. Federal prosecutors love obstruction of justice charges. They're easy to prove and carry serious prison time. The next morning, a process server delivered papers claiming KW Holdings was suing me for defamation and business interference. They wanted $200,000 in damages. Sarah laughed when I showed her the lawsuit. Karen's admitting under oath that she owns KW Holdings and that our federal investigation is harming her business. She just confessed to the criminal conspiracy we've been proving. Thursday evening, someone threw a brick through our front window. Attached was a note in block letters. Drop the lawsuit or lose more than windows. I called 911, then Sarah, then the assistant U.S. attorney. Within an hour, FBI agents were processing the crime scene while neighbors gathered to offer support. We're treating this as witness intimidation in a federal case, Agent Kim said. That's a separate felony carrying up to 20 years. The next morning, Agent Kim called. We arrested Karen Whitmore at 6 a.m. Federal charges: racketeering, mail fraud, wire fraud, housing discrimination, obstruction of justice, and witness intimidation. What's she looking at? 40 years in federal prison if convicted on all counts. The emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. on a Thursday that felt like Christmas morning and Judgment Day rolled into one. Word had spread faster than gossip at a church potluck. The community center parking lot was already packed. The room buzzed with anticipation as neighbors who'd barely spoken in years shared Karen horror stories. At exactly 7, the remaining board members filed and looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Due to criminal charges filed by federal prosecutors, Karen Whitmore has resigned all HOA positions effective immediately. The board extends apologies to any residents who experienced inappropriate enforcement actions. Sarah Martinez stood. I'm here tonight representing not just Marcus Hicks, but every family Karen Whitmore targeted over the past 8 years. She pulled out a settlement check that seemed to glow under the fluorescent lights. Karen Whitmore's criminal enterprise has been dismantled by federal authorities. Tonight, we're here to announce the terms of her civil settlement. $75,000 in damages to Marcus Hicks for harassment, discrimination, and attempted theft of property through fraudulent HOA enforcement. Applause erupted. Emma clapped, so hard her hands probably hurt. Sarah wasn't finished. Additionally, Karen Whitmore is permanently banned from any HOA leadership position in Ohio. KW Holdings LLC has been dissolved with all illegally acquired properties returned to fair market value through court-supervised sales. Most importantly, this case has established legal precedent for HOA accountability. No board member in Ohio can ever again use community authority for personal financial gain without facing federal prosecution. I stood up and walked to the microphone. The room fell silent. 8 months ago, I thought I was fighting one woman over some windows. Tonight, I realized we were fighting for something much bigger. We proved that ordinary people can defeat corruption when they document everything, build community support, and refuse to back down. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. 6 months later, I'm standing in my backyard watching Emma practice her college application presentation. The same windows that started this whole mess sparkle in the afternoon sunlight. The settlement money transformed more than just my bank account. It transformed an entire community. The Willowbrook Estates Scholarship Fund, established with $25,000 from a settlement, awarded its first grants last month. Emma won $500 for her essay about standing up to injustice, which she'll use toward her pre-law program at Ohio State University. The playground improvements funded by $15,000 opened last week with a ribbon-cutting ceremony that drew 300 residents. Children who once tiptoed around Karen's violation threats now swing freely while their parents organize movie nights and block parties without fear. Carlos Martinez won the HOA presidency by a landslide on a platform of transparent governance. His first act was implementing monthly financial reporting and requiring board member conflict of interest disclosures. Janet Bennett leads garden tours now, proudly displaying the gnomes Karen once banned. Marcus taught us that standing up to bullies isn't just about yourself. It's about protecting the next person who might get targeted. The legal defense fund seeded with $10,000 from my settlement has already helped 3 families in neighboring counties fight HOA abuse. Karen plea bargained to avoid trial, receiving 3 years in federal prison plus 5 years supervised probation. Her real estate license was permanently revoked. KW Holdings dissolved and all illegally acquired properties sold at court-supervised auctions. The Patel family used restitution money to buy back their original house. Ohio House Bill 247, the HOA Transparency Act, passed with unanimous bipartisan support. It requires conflict disclosure, limits foreclosure authority, and establishes tenant rights for rentals in HOA communities. I testified at the bill's signing, sitting beside the governor as he signed legislation that will protect thousands of families from future Karen Whitmores. My electrician business has tripled, partly because homeowners throughout central Ohio want to hire the guy who took down the corrupt HOA, but mostly because word spreads when you help neighbors fix problems instead of creating them. The annual Willowbrook Freedom Festival happens next month with live music, food trucks, and booths sharing HOA reform resources. Emma's organizing a voter registration drive because she learned civic engagement beats passive compliance every time. My evidence room has become a local museum of sorts. Neighbors bring their kids to see the timeline and documents that dismantled an 8-year reign of terror. This is what happens when good people document bad behavior. Last weekend, a young couple with 2 small children bought the house where the Martinez family once lived in fear. They knocked on my door asking about the neighborhood, and I could honestly tell them, this is a community where people look out for each other. That's what we built from the ashes of Karen's corruption, a real community. If you've survived HOA harassment, share your story. Your engagement helps other victims find hope and resources. Bullies count on isolation. Communities create accountability. And sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be afraid. Justice tastes even sweeter when it's shared with neighbors who've become family.